Here we are again. This one's crazy. This one I'm doing something that nobody else has done. I don't know of anybody that's tried to take on this guy. Fulton Sheen. You say, well, what's Fulton Sheen got to do with anything? He's dead and gone. He doesn't have any bearing on our lives today. Well, let me tell you how I come to this. I tried to sit down one day and tried to figure out who had the biggest influence on the American people especially. What has really happened to make people become the way they've become over the last 2 decades. They don't want to talk about the Bible, they just want to steer clear of it. And they've come up with a slogan, nobody talks about religion, they know better because it's just going to lead to arguments and that type of thing. Excuse me. So I began to research as to who were the prominent speakers. Who was the most influential individuals in the history of our country, affected the most people with their ideas in connection with the Roman Catholic Church. And I come up with really one name. Billy Graham was not as near the philosophical influence upon the American people as Fulton Sheen. Fulton Sheen became the voice piece, the mouth of the Roman Empire, or better yet, let's put it this way. Fulton Sheen was the face of the world order. And so I decided I was going to watch every video I could get my hands on and try to see how that aligned with the Bible. To see what this man did and how he affected the minds and the hearts and how people felt, because this is what his job was. The world order put him there for a reason. And he developed his skills over the years. He got better at what he did. He found out if he told jokes, he found out that people liked jokes. So when he opened up his little speeches, his sermons, he would always start out with the word friends. He didn't know practically anybody in the audience or who was watching him, but he wanted to address you that he was such a kind man. He was the sales piece, the salesman of the Roman Catholic Federal World Order. I also did more research about the federal government and how it originated. And if you do the same, whether you go on Google or you spend your time at the library, you'll find out that it's a bunch of murk and mire and confusion. They don't give you any clear map as to where this federal government started. So after all this research and all this time that I've spent, not just recently for this video, but throughout my entire life, I'm going to give you the short pro quo of who is the federal government, who's in charge of it, and that includes the Federal Reserve Bank and the Roman Catholic Empire, the world order, if you will, the real world order. You can call them new or old or whatever you want to call them, but I'm going to give you the face, the name, and who's in charge of this mess. Now, there's several things that we're going to cover here on this last video. We might have 2 parts at this point. I don't know whether I'm going to have part 1 and part 2, or if we're going to be able to complete this in just one video. Because my gentleman that's helped me do this video, he's rather limited in his mentality, and he can only keep his attention for so long. I had to get there. Okay. Now, Fulton Sheen's ministry, I was just joking, by the way. He'll sabotage me some way for that. Fulton Sheen's ministry, his goal for his entire ministry. These are the 5 things that I came out with, the 5 main things that Fulton Sheen tried to accomplish throughout his entire life. Now, according to a lot of people, you'll read the comments on Fulton Sheen's videos. If you go to YouTube and you look up Fulton Sheen's videos, you're going to see all these videos. You can pull up these videos on YouTube, and you can draw your own conclusions. And I know that there's some people I'm never going to be able to get to. I'm never going to be able to convince a lot of people of much of anything. But for those of you that really like truth, if you like truth, if you want to see the real meat of what something's about, you're going to appreciate this. 5 things that I come up with Fulton Sheen tried to accomplish. Number 1, and this is not necessarily in some chronological order. Number 1, he equated Jesus as a myth, and I'm going to prove that. To degrade humanity or to devalue humanity. 3, sell the Catholic Church as the greatest. He was a salesman for the Catholic Church. Notice it wasn't by chance that he stood beside the statue of Mary and Jesus holding the globe, the cross and the globe scheme, which is dominated our culture. Number 4, present the idea of Christianity as a myth. So he slipped in. Now, he didn't directly come out and say Jesus was a myth. Oh, he wouldn't do that. But the way he did it was so slick, and I'm going to show you how he did it. Number 5, sell secular education over the Bible. Through all his videos, you'll see that he promoted education, secular education, man's version of education, the synthesis of the human mind and how it can synthesize that which God simply ordained. I'd like to make mention in the video that, if some of you remember the video that I made about Cain and Abel, and I tried to emphasize how important understanding Cain and Abel was. And I know that this is a complicated subject, okay? But Abel and Cain was the first presentation of when man tried to assert his will over that which God ordained. So God literally ordained how he wanted sacrifices to be conducted, and Cain displayed his desire to override God and produce his idea of what is valuable. And this was, I say this because you need to understand that this was the very first start of the Babylonian thing. Babylon was a monument in our history to man's endeavor to supersede God. All right, so I want to get started with this. The first video, it's called How to Compare World Religions. And this is the title, so I want to make sure you got the title of this video so that you can look it up on YouTube. If you look up Fulton Sheen, just punch Fulton Sheen in on YouTube, and How to Compare World Religions. And we're going to start at 9:40, okay? Now, there's some big revelations going to be gotten out of this for those of you that are patient enough to bear with this simple style of presentation. Sometimes it gives you a year.
Wine in the communion service. Imagine. Can't see the difference between wine for intoxication, wine in a communion service.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video periodically and go over what is the most important things in this video and what's going on.
That man couldn't see the difference between a rope that's tied around a man to hold his pants up and another around his neck to hold his whole being up. Take another. This is so common. There's no point in using names. Names from Germany, France, England, and America. Their argument is that all religions are due to a sun cult. The sun gods explain almost every religion under the sun. Apollo, for example, had a miraculous birth. Attis came from the lower regions. Osiris rose from the dead. Tammuz came out of the lower regions. And so anyone who's ever appeared and claimed to have given light to the world, such as, for example, the person of Christ, actually did nothing but develop a sun myth. That is why he had 12 apostles, because, they say, there were 12 signs in the zodiac. That's the argument. Now, let's run that down to earth. Just suppose we use the same argument on Napoleon. If you've ever seen the statue of Napoleon in Place Vendôme, Paris, you will notice that the word there of Napoleon is written the Apollio. Now that would mean, making this Greek, that means that he is Apollo itself. So there never really has been a Napoleon. It's all due to the sun cult of Apollo.
There, Mr. Sheen literally tells you that Napoleon never existed. But yet they teach it in history. They teach in history, every college you would go to, they will acknowledge Napoleon's existence. But here, the main spokesman for the Roman Catholic Federal Empire is telling you that Napoleon never existed. And I want you to watch how slick he begins to pull Jesus into this mythological character.
You think you studied the history of Napoleon? Ridiculous. Who was his mother? Letizia, wasn't it? Who was the mother of Napoleon? Leto. What does Leto mean? In one language and Letizia in the other. Both joy. That's how we got the idea that Napoleon was born of a woman named Letizia from Apollo. You believe that Napoleon had 3 sisters? He did, according to a myth, but where did the myth start?
Okay, I'm not denying that this man isn't highly educated. He wouldn't be on the position that he carried had he not been very educated in the world. He had a tough job. Fulton Sheen had a difficult job. He had the job of trying to balance all the lies that the Roman Empire was telling the world. He had a job of trying to hide so many ugly things about the Roman Empire. The millions of people that they martyred, the blood that they spilled. I couldn't recall in any video that I've seen that there was any acknowledgement of the martyrs. So he buried that, and he slipped over the fact that they've murdered millions. They didn't even mention one that I can remember. So he did a very good job, because, and somewhere through all this you must understand that he took the world away from looking at the Bible. So he equated, and I'm going to show you how he equated Jesus with the myth. He already began doing that when he talked about how Jesus and Mother Mary basically evolved from the sun myth. So let's continue and understand that if you really listen to this man, he doesn't really do anything but confuse you.
Apollo had 3 sisters. Didn't Apollo have 2 wives? One was the earth, the other was the moon. Napoleon had 2. Where's the sun the major part of the day? How long is it in the sky? About 12 hours. How long did Napoleon reign supreme? 12 years. See, sun myth. He never existed. Furthermore, where is the sun strongest? To the north or the south? It's the south, isn't it? Gets weaker in the north, doesn't it? Where was Napoleon defeated? In Russia. See? Napoleon never existed. Sun cult.
And that's just a small issue of what we're going to present here. When he equates, the attempt was to loop Christianity in with religion